She covered her aunt's shift as a cleaner at a hotel and was mistaken for a guest by a millionaire. The morning sun cast long golden rectangles across the marble floor of the Grand Metropolitan Hotel lobby as Emma Harrison hurried through the ornate revolving doors. Her Aunt Margaret's cleaning uniform felt strange against her skin. The crisp blue dress and white apron were nothing like the casual clothes she usually wore to her job at the local bookstore. But when Margaret had called at 6 in the morning, voice thick with fever and exhaustion, Emma hadn't hesitated. "Please, sweetheart," her aunt had pleaded through labored breathing. "I can't afford to lose this job. Mrs. Chen is understanding, but I've already missed 2 days this month when Tommy was sick. If you could just cover the morning shift?" Emma had arrived at the hotel 15 minutes early, clutching the employee badge Margaret had left for her and trying to remember all the instructions her aunt had rattled off between coughing fits. Clean the executive floors first, always knock before entering, and whatever you do, stay invisible. The wealthy guests at the Grand Metropolitan paid premium prices for luxury and privacy, and hotel staff were expected to blend seamlessly into the background. The elevator carried her silently to the 15th floor, where the executive suites stretched down a carpeted hallway lined with original artwork and crystal sconces. Emma pulled her cleaning cart behind her, the wheels whispering against the plush carpet. Each door she passed represented more money than she made in a year, but she tried not to think about that. She was here to help her aunt, nothing more. Room 1507 was her first stop. She knocked softly, waited for the required 10 seconds, then used Margaret's master key to enter. The suite was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, while elegant furniture and fresh flowers created an atmosphere of refined luxury. Someone had obviously spent the night here. The bed was unmade, and a half-empty cup of coffee sat on the mahogany desk beside an open laptop. Emma worked quickly and quietly, just as Margaret had taught her. She stripped the bed with practiced efficiency, replaced the towels in the marble bathroom, and carefully dusted around the expensive-looking items scattered throughout the room. A designer watch lay forgotten on the nightstand, and she handled it with extra care, knowing it probably cost more than her car. She was just finishing with the vacuum when she heard footsteps in the hallway outside. The sound stopped directly in front of the door, followed by the electronic beep of a key card. Emma's heart raced. She should have been done by now, should have moved on to the next room. In her nervousness about her first day, she had been too thorough, too slow. The door opened just as Emma was unplugging the vacuum, and she looked up to see a tall man in an expensive suit standing in the doorway. He had dark hair that was slightly disheveled, as if he'd been running his hands through it, and tired green eyes that seemed to carry the weight of too many responsibilities. For a moment, they simply stared at each other in mutual surprise. "I'm so sorry," Emma stammered, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. "I was just finishing up. I'll get out of your way immediately." But instead of the irritation she expected, the man's expression softened with something that looked almost like relief. "Please, don't apologize. I'm the one who's early." He stepped into the room and closed the door behind him, then paused, studying her face with curious intensity. "Have we met before?" he asked. "You look familiar somehow." Emma shook her head, quickly, acutely aware of how out of place she must look in her aunt's uniform. "No, sir, I don't think so. I'm covering for someone today." The man moved to the window, loosening his tie as he gazed out at the city below. "Covering for someone," he repeated thoughtfully. "That's kind of you. Not many people would give up their Saturday morning to help someone else." There was something in his tone that made Emma pause in her hurried packing of cleaning supplies. He sounded tired, not just physically but emotionally, the kind of deep exhaustion that sleep couldn't cure. "My aunt needed help," Emma said simply. "Family helps family." He turned from the window to look at her again, and this time his smile was genuine. Your aunt is lucky to have you. I'm David, by the way, David Harrison. The name seemed familiar, though Emma couldn't place why. Emma, she replied, then added unnecessarily, Emma Harrison. David's eyes widened slightly. Harrison? That's quite a coincidence, though I suppose it's not that uncommon a name. He paused, studying her face again with that same curious intensity. You're not staying here at the hotel, are you? I mean, obviously you're working, but are you a guest as well? Emma blinked in confusion. I'm sorry, what do you mean? It's just, David continued, moving closer, you have this quality about you. The way you carry yourself, the way you speak. Very refined, elegant. I assumed you might be staying here while doing some volunteer work or community service project. Emma nearly laughed at the absurdity of it. Her refined and elegant, in her aunt's cleaning uniform with her hands still damp from scrubbing bathroom tiles? Mr. Harrison, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm not a guest here. I'm a hotel cleaner. Well, temporarily. I work at a bookstore normally, but my aunt is sick, and she couldn't afford to miss her shift, so She trailed off, realizing she was rambling. David was staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Surprise, certainly, but also something that might have been admiration. You took time off from your own job to cover your aunt's cleaning shift because she was sick, he said slowly. And you're doing it well enough that I mistook you for a guest. Emma's cheeks reddened again. I'm sure I don't look anything like your typical guest here. No, David said quietly. You don't. You look like something much rarer. He walked to the desk and picked up his coffee cup, cradling it thoughtfully. Can I ask you something, Emma Harrison? What do you think makes someone valuable? The question caught her off guard. What do you mean? I spend my days surrounded by people who measure worth in dollars and status symbols. They look at this watch. He gestured to the expensive timepiece she had so carefully dusted around. And see success. They look at this suite and see achievement. But what do you see when you look at me? Emma considered the question seriously. David Harrison. And suddenly she remembered where she'd heard the name. Harrison Technologies, the billionaire CEO who was always in the business pages. The man standing before her could buy this entire hotel without blinking, could purchase her bookstore 100 times over. But that's not what she saw when she looked at him. I see someone who's tired, she said honestly. Someone who carries too much responsibility and doesn't have enough people who care about him as a person rather than what he can do for them. I see someone who was genuinely surprised when a stranger showed him basic kindness. David set down his coffee cup with shaking hands. When was the last time someone saw me that clearly? He murmured, more to himself than to her. I should go, Emma said softly, recognizing that she had somehow stepped into a moment more intimate than she'd intended. I have other rooms to clean, and you obviously need your privacy. Wait, David said as she moved toward the door. Please. I know this sounds crazy, but would you have coffee with me? Not here, not in this suite where I'm the CEO and you're the cleaner, but somewhere neutral. Somewhere we can just be Emma and David. Emma hesitated, her hand on the door handle. Mr. Harrison, I don't think that's a good idea. We're from very different worlds. Are we? David asked. Because 10 minutes ago I was the loneliest person in this city, surrounded by luxury that means nothing and success that feels hollow. And then you walked in, covered in your aunt's uniform because you couldn't bear to let family down, and you looked at me like I was just a person who needed kindness. That doesn't sound like different worlds to me. That sounds like the same world, just with different circumstances. Emma turned back to face him, seeing past the expensive suit and designer watch to the man underneath. He was right. Beneath all the wealth and status, he was just someone who needed connection, who was tired of being valued for what he owned rather than who he was. There's a small cafe called Corner Cafe about 6 blocks from here, she said, finally. It's not fancy, but they make good coffee and nobody will bother you for autographs or business deals. David's face lit up with the first genuine joy she'd seen from him. When? I finish my shift at 2. Would 3 o'clock work? Emma, David said as she opened the door. Thank you, not just for the coffee invitation, but for seeing me, really seeing me. It's been a long time since anyone bothered to do that, sigh. Emma made her way down the hallway to the next suite. She reflected on the strange morning. She had come here to help her aunt, to earn a few extra dollars and keep Margaret from losing a job she desperately needed. She never expected to meet someone who would challenge everything she thought she knew about wealth and worth. At Corner Cafe that afternoon, sitting across from David Harrison in a simple booth with mismatched mugs and paper napkins, Emma discovered that sometimes the most meaningful connections happen when you stop pretending to be something you're not. David, without his CEO persona, was funny and thoughtful and surprisingly down to earth. And Emma, without the barrier of assumed class, different.